Okay, hello. My name is Jay Carpenter. I'm the founder of Desert Blockchain and Desert Blockchain Camps. And today is Saturday, July the 9th, 2022. And I will stop the screen sharing. So welcome to our Desert Blockchain Camp open house. We have these on the second Saturdays of the month from 11 a.m. Arizona time till about 2 p.m. And the format is that we're going to spend the first hour talking about a particular topic. In this case, it's going to be the Stellar Community Fund winners. And then we've got some folks here in the Desert Blockchain Camp. We'll be talking about that. And Shane Sandler, Blockchaingerous, will be talking about highlighting some of the winners, and we'll discuss it a little bit. Then we'll open it up for other comments. And then at noon, we'll we'll put the Zoom on basically screen share mode and turn off the mic and so forth, and the camera. We have pizza lunch on the second Saturday for the open house. Pizza is provided by Desert Blockchain. And then we'll open it up again at 1 o'clock if any of the Desert Blockchain citizens are interested in tuning in, or if you're watching this on the live stream, you can interact via the chat on the right, post your questions and so forth. I'm monitoring that. And basically that's how it goes. We appreciate you participating and watching this either on the recording or live. And we will have another session on the Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Arizona time. We haven't set the topic yet, but we'll announce that on Meetup and so forth. And that'll be an hour-long session also via Zoom for Desert Blockchain citizens, and via live stream for anybody to join in. And if you're not familiar with the Desert Blockchain Citizen Program, we do that via Patreon for $10 a month, and we're creating various programs and benefits and things like that for Desert Blockchain citizens, where you can join our sessions via the Zoom and participate live, or you also get the presentations approximately a day in advance and some other benefits from time to time. So we are completely community supported. Occasionally we will have a sponsor, but that's very rare, and sponsors approach us basically, and if the sponsors' products and services meet our intention in our community and we would use it ourselves, then we will take on a sponsor occasionally, but primarily we are community supported, and we appreciate your support. So I'm going to turn it over to Shane Sandler, Blockchaingerous, who will talk about go through talking about some of the Stellar Community Fund winners. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a really cool way to get up to speed on what Stellar is, as well as how Stellar is being applied, which we are big fans of Stellar here at Desert Blockchain. And by the way, I only own a teeny tiny amount of Stellar Lumens, so this is not like a cryptocurrency promotion or anything like that. We are interested in real life applications, and we see the Stellar ecosystem as a way to really press forward with innovative Web3 and DWeb applications that have a whole bunch of functionality to it. So I am going to turn it over to Shane and go from there. I will mute this particular feed. What's that? Okay. Okay, cool. I will do that. So take it away, Shane.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Like you said, I'm Shane Sandler. I go by Blockchangerous on the internet. If you don't know me, let me get my screen share going here. I run an IoT game called Crypto Cannoneer, where it's basically a live stream shooting gallery where you can shoot tennis balls and water cannons all over the internet. We've got like a big air gun in here, and it's basically a turret that you can aim around and shoot at the targets in here. It looks like our internet's getting a little bogged down with all the people we have on the stream and everything, but you know, feel free to check out cryptocannoneer.com and you can play around with this when we're not eating up all of our bandwidth in here. Like Jay said, as far as disclaimers go, we are big fans of the Stellar network, but we aren't particularly big holders of Stellar lumens. I personally have enough to run my business, and that's about it. I don't consider lumens to be a particularly great cryptocurrency investment, but the network itself is wonderful. So we're not sponsored by them in any way, but I was a winner of about 20 grand from the Stellar Community Fund number 8, which was last summer. They do this Stellar Community Fund where they give away about $1 million every 3 to 6 months, depending on how frequently they feel like doing it, for people that are developing on the Stellar network and building out products that use the Stellar network. And so that's how this Crypto Cannoneer got off the ground. So I was a winner of SCF 8. I did apply to SCF 9 and 10, but I haven't advanced the project far enough to be readmitted into the finalists. So for people who are interested in checking out this SCF grant, I'm happy to give you any advice that I have from my experience. But the thing that I'm noticing lately is ask for enough money to get you to the next stage, because if you don't get to the next stage, then they won't let you back in. So that is just a little disclaimer there. But so yeah, just last week, the 10th round of this SCF fund just completed. It's an entirely community voted fund. So basically the Stellar community gets to vote on their favorite projects and if they're worth whatever budget they've requested. And they just fund the ones that get the most votes until they run out of money. So I've taken a quick glance at this list, but I haven't really done a deep dive on any of this. This first one right here, I'm very impressed that this exists already, because so this is it's a smart contract SDK, which is a software development kit. Basically, this is to help people build smart contracts on Stellar, but smart contracts on Stellar don't even exist yet. This is all still very much a beta. It's like pretty much only in developer mode. So the fact that someone's taking the time to build out SDKs and tools for something that doesn't even exist yet is pretty impressive. Beanz App. So I found this one pretty interesting, and I really want to dive into it further because I was looking at it and I was like, dang, 220 grand for a wallet? Like, that's a lot of money. That seems like way too much money for just a wallet app. And I want to dive into it further. I don't know if this video will come through. Am I even screen sharing? Did I forget to do that? No, I'm doing that. All right, we're screen sharing. So it doesn't look like the audio is coming through on this, but I definitely want to dive into this Beanz app further to see how it could have possibly justified such a large budget request, because from the simple description from it, it just looks like a wallet with a yield-based token. So, I mean, yeah, they say they're abstracting away all the blockchain stuff to make it more of a native and intuitive app so that people can use it just like Venmo or whatever and not have to deal with any of the blockchain stuff. So that's cool, but in my opinion, that does not justify that much money. But they got second place, so a lot of people thought that they deserved it. And so I need to do a deeper dive on that and see what makes it so great. Elixir Stellar Sdk. I didn't dive into this too much because it's focused in Latin America. But it looks like they're creating libraries for supporting Stellar in the Elixir programming language, which I'm not familiar with that either. So that one's a little bit outside of my scope. Pluto Loans, they got almost 50 grand. That's a very interesting budget request. So the teams that submit, they get to fill out their own budget requests. And so 48, there's got to be some reason why they chose that number. That's interesting. Let's see here. So they're spending future yields and repaying loans with no liquidation risks. So this sounds kind of like a Ponzi scheme, but I guess you're basically like leveraging your future yields. This sounds like a really great way to crumble in a bear market, like so many of these high yield tokens and protocols have lately. This I would think would be kind of this bear market, I think, is a really good warning for everyone that these crazy high yields and these Ponzi-like tokenomics where they're totally dependent on the bull market being able to sustain these big yields, they are dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'll jump around a little bit and I'll talk about my experience with the SCF. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take a little tangent here and back into the actual nuts and bolts of how the SCF works. The SCF is the Stellar Community Fund. So basically the Stellar blockchain network is run by a nonprofit called the SDF, the Stellar Development. I always get this mixed up. So SCF, SDF, yeah. So SCF and SDF, that's why it's confusing. So the Stellar network is run by a nonprofit called the Stellar Development Foundation, who owns about 50% of all of the lumens in existence. And from their bank of lumens, that's where how they fund these like hackathon initiatives and their various community funds. And they have a larger enterprise fund as well for people who are scaling large businesses on the Stellar network. And so they have a community of judges who basically choose the finalists from everyone who applied. And of the 30 or so finalists, the community gets to vote on what projects they are most excited about and which ones they think, made the most appropriate budget requests. And that's how all this funding comes from. And so, yeah, my experience with SCF, I actually won a hackathon last, I think it was February or March, that was sponsored by Stellar. And then after that, I rolled that project into the Stellar Community Fund number 8. And that's when I asked for, I actually applied in 2 separate batches because it's an all or nothing application. It's either you get funded or you don't. There's no partial funding. So I was worried that if I asked for too much, I would get nothing. So I actually applied twice, and maybe that's the way to go. I don't know if it was technically against the rules, but they let it fly. I did one application for $5 grand and another application for 15 grand, and they both got accepted. I won, I think, 2nd place and 8th place or 5th place. And so those both got funded. So I think maybe that's the way to go if you're interested in trying SCF. Maybe I'll try that again next time. And what my experience has been, so I asked for enough money that I thought would give me about a 6-month runway, and that's about a year ago. I got pretty lucky with the bull market at the time, so I'm still able to use that money to keep this project going. But they haven't allowed me back into the finals because I haven't advanced from basically like a startup or like a prototype to like a truly functioning, like profitable product yet. And so that's what they want to see, is that I've actually sort of advanced to the next stage where I've actually got a functioning product and I'm building a customer base, and I'm out of prototype phase and into startup phase. And so that's what the feedback I got this last time was, that I need to get to the next stage. So I should have, in retrospect, I should have asked for more money. If I'd asked for more money, then even if I'd gotten denied, I would have been able to get back into the finals the next time with a better product and hopefully I should have asked for like 50 grand, and that would have given me both a year runway and enough money to hire some software developers to help me get this to an actual product, as opposed to still being in the prototype phase. So now I'm still on my shoestring budget, and I just got to get up to the next stage so that I can get accepted to the finals here, or I need to seek some other funding. There's plenty of other entrepreneurial incubators. You know, you can do crowdfunding campaigns, you can do ICOs and all that stuff. Once you get into the ICOs and the NFTs and stuff, then you're starting to really, at least here in the USA, you start to butt heads with security laws. So you have to be really careful about how you structure that and how you advertise that and how you do that. So hopefully that'll be on the horizon a little bit later, but I'm still trying to figure out the best way to monetize this and make it like truly an enjoyable play to experience before I start asking people money for it. So that's a little bit more background about me and my experience with the SCF. We can continue on through the SCF. Oh, and like I mentioned before, there is sort of like a program above the SCF. Once you get, so I haven't really seen any applicants from the SCF get more than like 250 grand, because that's like a quarter of what they're giving away. And, you know, they could fund a bunch of smaller startups. SCF is really for like early prototype and startups, people who, in my opinion, need like 50 grand or less. And so once you're asking for like 200 grand or more, you're really more trying to go to the Stellar Enterprise Fund, and they have much bigger grants available. It's not a community voted process. It's like entirely through the SDF, but they do require you to be like a functional company with customers trying to scale pretty much. You pretty much need to be in the scaling phase of your project. So that's sort of like the roadmap through like SCF up to like the enterprise fund and going through and, you know, doing this whole sort of song and dance. So anyways, this next project, let's see, Vitreous, making transparent data easy to understand and encourage trust, social network features. That's a little vague. Okay, so it's a fundraising platform. So it sounds like they're trying to build the next sort of crowdfunding platform, like a GoFundMe, but powered by crypto and Stellar. So that's pretty interesting with the SCF fund. So this is actually ties right into what I was just talking about. It sounds like they're creating another way to continue your funding journey, you know, for entrepreneurs and startups that are trying to build on Stellar. So this could be a really cool next step for me if they get off the ground, and you know, I can present my MVP and maybe do like a crowdfunding campaign. This looks cool. I definitely need to look into Vitreous a little bit more. Sync geo bounding. Oh, I did see this when I was looking through this the first time. This seems pretty interesting. I mean, there's a lot of crypto projects out there that try to pay you for your geo data. So it's kind of the people who, it's sort of based on like the Pokemon Go situation where, like, you know, if you basically give up all of your IP or your geolocation data and you go look at stuff, then they'll reward you with whatever. So there's a few crypto projects out there that give you rewards for doing real life activities. You know, I think STEPN got really popular. That's one of the ones that I think they sort of created a whole industry of sort of people who are trying to reward people for being healthy. So basically you get paid for the steps that you log on your Fitbit or whatever. And so this is another sort of way to monetize people's real life. You know, you can sell your geo data and go do various tasks to earn their cryptocurrency. So this looks interesting. I'm not really into the geohashing as much, especially not here in the Phoenix summer. Maybe we can go out and explore and get some geo coins once that cools off here. The Blue Marble is an NFT marketplace. Oh, this did sound interesting. They allow you to split sales and revenues with charitable causes. So that's pretty cool. So they'll handle all of the back end on if you want to do like a crowdfunding campaign or an NFT sale where you're saying 10% goes to this charity or whatever. They'll handle all that back end for you and make it, I think, sort of like trusted so that you are actually sure that those things are going where you say they are. So that's pretty cool. This is leveraging Stellar turrets, which that's the sort of the current Stellar implementation for smart contracts. And that's going to get phased out once Project Jump Cannon comes out. That's cool. And then they also are all mentioning lifetime royalties. which that's really cool because that's something that's been really missing from the Stellar NFT ecosystem is royalties. That's something I'm really passionate about. That's something that I've integrated into my own NFT marketplace. And that's a really big qualm I have with Lightmint, that it doesn't have royalties. I'm going to be interested to see how they implemented it, if it's like a truly enforced royalty, or if it is only through their platform. And if you pull your assets off their platform, you can get around it. So I want to look at that. They got a fairly large chunk of money, so that's pretty cool. They should have enough money to get something really going well. This sounded fun. So I'm really into the game space, obviously. And so this sounds pretty cool. It's a 2D RPG game that has NFT-based characters and gear. So that's pretty cool that you can, take all your items out and sell them or trade them right there on the Stellar network. So this sounds pretty cool. I definitely want to check this out. It's a big step in NFT gaming on Stellar. Sent it. It's a wallet. It looks like it's a wallet that's also integrating in tokenized stocks and bonds and NFTs. I don't see what really differentiates it from all the other non-custodial wallets that are out there. So yeah, I don't know what differentiates this or what makes it worth giving them 50 grand. Looks like a wallet. I'd have to dive into it further. Sky Hits is a music NFT marketplace. That's pretty cool. Trade equity for their work. So that's interesting. It sounds like you can, basically it's a way to pay creators with equity on, an NFT marketplace. So this could be really interesting. I'd be really interested to see what their UI looks like. Let's take a look at their website real quick. See how much of it they've actually got built. Let's see, they got 120 grand. That's a lot of money. So that's pretty cool. Oh, I already hate it. You have to sign up before you can see anything. That's rough. I don't like that a one bit. So that's not how I would personally build a landing page, but to each their own. Let's see what else we got going on. MythForge is another NFT based game. Sounds super cool. I'm loving the development of NFT gaming on Stellar. It just makes so much sense. So the whole reason that I'm building my game on Stellar is because it's so reliant on microtransactions and like open marketplaces and trades for NFTs. And Stellar's transaction fees are super low. And that makes me able to pump out, thousands of transactions a day for not a significant amount of money, which would be almost impossible on most other networks, certainly on Ethereum. And then to be able to openly trade your NFTs with each other with low fees and frictionless to like various currencies, whether it's USD coin or lumens or, Latin American coins or Chinese yen or whatever you want to use as your base currency, all that's feasible on the Stellar network. So I think Stellar is really a great option for gaming, especially NFT gaming and microtransaction based gaming. So this is awesome. I love seeing more blockchain games being built on Stellar. So I definitely want to check this out, see what their website looks like. Well, at least they show us something other than just telling us to sign up. I like the art. It looks cool. I definitely want to check it out. They got 20 grand, so they'll be able to work on that for a bit. BP Ventures helping fintechs. So this is interesting, kind of creating a DeFi outlet for fintech on off ramps, on USD coin. It says it's an anchor in a box. So that's pretty cool. So if you're not familiar with the Stellar ecosystem, anchors are basically entities that tokenize something. So I was previously talking about like tokenized stocks. So if you buy a tokenized stock on Stellar, let's say you want to buy a share of Tesla stock on Stellar, and so you buy Tesla coin from whomever, you're basically trusting that whoever issued that token, the anchor, they actually have one stock of Tesla that they'll give you if you want to cash out your Tesla coin for your real stock. And so that's the idea of an anchor or an anchored asset or a tethered asset, if you will, is basically this is a Stellar token that represents something else. So you could tokenize anything. You could tokenize stocks, you could tokenize hot dogs, you could tokenize anything. And then the idea behind a tokenized asset that is tethered or anchored is that it's actually worth the underlying whatever. And so it's based on the idea that you can redeem the token for the real asset with that entity, with that company, with that anchor. And so that's how these tokenized versions of other cryptocurrencies work as well. So like you can buy tokenized Bitcoin on the Stellar network. If you're familiar with the Ethereum ecosystem, you might call it wrapped Bitcoin. And so that's a Stellar token that represents a real Bitcoin. And so you're trusting that the entity you bought that from actually has that real Bitcoin somewhere. And if you ask to swap your tokenized Bitcoin with your real Bitcoin, that'll actually happen. And so there's definitely a big level of trust there with anchors. And that's sort of one of the weak points in the Stellar ecosystem, in my opinion, that there aren't decentralized anchors yet. They're all centralized entities. And this looks like an interesting step to creating more anchors out there, more options. So it's basically, it sounds like it's primarily like a turnkey system for being your own anchor. And so that at least increases the amount of anchors there are for you to choose from. So you can hopefully find one you trust, but I'd say it's definitely a step towards decentralized anchors. Once we have Project Jump Cannon, decentralized anchors are absolutely going to be a thing. It's all going to be smart contract based, just like it is on Ethereum. And I think that'll be really good. That'll be a lot more trustworthy. And as long as they aren't running on some sort of crazy fractionalized reserve, high yield nonsense, they should be pretty foolproof, even in a bear market. Link, let's see. How many more of these are there? How many got funded? Oh, not that many, just 15. A fintech service provider building cross-border payments infrastructure in Africa. So Stellar has a lot of initiatives towards third world countries, and one of their main missions is banking the unbanked. You might not know this, but there's about 3 billion people in the world who don't have a bank account, either because they don't have access to it in their country, or the fees are too high, or for whatever reason. And so sometimes cryptocurrency, especially really low friction cryptocurrencies like Stellar, can be really great for cross-border payments and remittances, and for helping people without a savings account actually try to save money and build wealth. And so they've got a lot of outreach to Africa and Latin America. Stellar frequently sponsors hackathons that are based in Latin America and Africa. And so this is cool. They make a lot of efforts to make Stellar accessible in third world countries, and to help bank the unbanked. And so, yeah, this is looking like it's an infrastructure and wallet and anchor situation specifically for Nigeria, for the Naira. So just like you can have a tethered USD stablecoin, you can have USD coin that, you know, you're trusting that you're going to be able to get one real USD into a real US bank account for every USD coin that you have, which in my opinion, USD coin is one of the safest. I operate all of my USD fiat stablecoin stuff through USD coin, and I've never had a problem actually cashing it out to my real bank account in real USD. So Naira is just that for the Nigerian currency. There's also stable coins for Chinese yuan and the euro, and I think there's over 20 fiat currencies that have been tokenized on Stellar by like major anchors that seem fairly trustworthy. And there's way more by sketchy anchors that may or may not be trustworthy. EduNote is an e-learning. Oh, I looked at this. This looks really cool. So it's an e-learning platform for Web3 developers and innovators trying to help educate, do NFT certifications and tools to monetize their skills. I am super into this. This is like a really close mission to what we're doing here in Desert Blockchain, is trying to do cryptocurrency education and empower innovators and entrepreneurs and, you know, people who want to build on blockchain and Web3 and we do decentralized projects. This is right up our alley. So I'm really hoping to actually reach out to these guys and maybe we can get them to come do a live stream with us or get a partnership going with these guys, because this sounds super awesome. I want to really dive into this further and see what they're truly trying to build and if there's some partnership options there for us and how we can be involved, because this is perfect. This is right in line with us. So yeah, I think there's some really, really potentially powerful synergy there between us and them. So I want to reach out to them for sure. Smile Pay, and yeah, they got 77 grand, so that's pretty sweet. Smile Pay is a peer-to-peer mobile app for African diasporas. So this is another remittance type framework helping to build things in Africa. So that is awesome. And that's it. And so then they ran out of money. Whoever was 16th asked for more money than was left. And so they just take whatever's left and roll it into SCF 11. And that'll be available whenever they launch SCF 11. So the whole process of the Stellar Community Fund takes at least 3 months. Usually they open submissions for 2 to 4 months, depending on if they're trying to do it quarterly or every half year. So they give you a long time to build your project up and get it submitted. And then the judges selection and finalist selection takes a week or two, where they pick their judging panel, and then the judges, you know, narrow down the sometimes hundreds of applicants down to about 30 finalists. And then you have about a month as a finalist where you need to be active on the Discord community and engaging with the Stellar community, talking about your project, what you're trying to build, and, you know, kind of just building trust and getting people to want to vote for you, because it's all entirely community voted. And so then after that, you know, month or so, it's like 3 or 4 weeks of community voting. Then it just takes a couple days for them to tally up the votes and figure out who won and get the lumens sent out. If you do win a lumens reward or any cryptocurrency reward, or you do a crowdfunding campaign, this is just my opinion. This is what I did, and it worked out pretty well for me, which is liquidate half of it into a stablecoin immediately. So you get all these rewards in lumens, and the price of lumens is, you know, highly variable. The whole cryptocurrency market is super volatile, and, you know, people, whether it's a crowdfunding like an ICO or an NFT drop, or it's like a hackathon reward or something like this, they're not paying you to speculate on the market. You know, I think that it's really irresponsible for project owners and people who win or crowdfund funds to keep it all in a highly volatile currency where they're entirely gambling and speculating on the market. So, you know, if you say you need 20 grand to accomplish X and you leave it all in lumens, and then the price of lumens collapses 50%, and now you only have 10 grand and you can no longer accomplish the goal that you were paid 20 grand for, well, that's your fault. You should have liquidated at least half of it and made sure that it stays worth 10 or even all of it, 20 grand, if that's how much you need, and speculate with a lot less. That's just my opinion. I think it's good practice. I've personally invested in ICOs where they didn't liquidate it. They left it all in Ethereum or whatever, and then Ethereum crashed out 90%, and then the whole project crumbled. So that's not what you want to see happen to your investment. And I don't think that's what the SCF wants to see happen when they, or the Stellar community wants to see happen when they put funds and vote for projects. So that is just my opinion, and with my experience from being involved in this process. So hopefully you guys found that helpful, and we kind of gave you a bit of a rundown about what the Stellar ecosystem is like and what we have going on there. Let me pull up the Zoom call again, see if we've got anything going on in here. I'm gonna stop screen sharing so that I can take a look at the chat and stuff. I guess I can do it without stopping screen sharing. It looks like we got nothing in the chat on Zoom. Michelle, can you see if there's anything in the YouTube chat there? Gray laptop on your left. It's the next computer. Nothing in the YouTube chat. Okay, so it looks like we are through that little rundown. I don't know if anyone in here has any questions or anything they want to talk about while we are sort of wrapping up this session, getting ready to do pizza. What do you guys think? Yeah. I mean, my mic should pick you up. Come on over.
This is Randy, by the way. One of the projects that you mentioned, the word anchor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hold you to any comments related to what you're, but if you, you know, I know that the Terra Luna issue
Sure.
has, in fact, I just typed it in, anchor protocol
Mm-hmm.
is where the Terra Luna stable coin that's not,
Yeah.
it's no longer stable.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting, this
Mhm.
is definitely not financial advice. I don't want anybody to even attempt to be involved. I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word anchor,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know, and it sounds like that's
It's
similar to what was being done with.
It likely is. Mm-hmm. So
what's the
yeah.
use of that word, and how do we
Mhm.
make sure we distinguish?
yeah.
that?
So yeah, there's a couple things going on there. So yes, it is. I'm not an expert in Terra Luna, but I do have a pretty decent understanding and familiarity with it. But so I think that the term anchor is being used very similarly. So I think Stellar has a kind of niche or really specific definition of how they use anchor, because they define it as an actual entity. They do anchors. And so an anchor in the Stellar world, in the Stellar ecosystem, in the Stellar community, is really just a business. An anchor in the Stellar, it's a business, it's the entity, it's a company that's saying, so if I personally take my company, my LLC, and I can open up an anchor and I can create a toy. Let's use hot dogs as an example again. So I can create hot dog token, and if I want to actually have those be truly anchored and my hot dog tokens actually be worth either a hot dog or a pack of hot dogs, however it's been distinguished, I either have to have a deep freeze full of however many hot dogs as tokens I've issued that I can send out, unless we want to start talking about fractionalized reserves and all that nonsense, or enough cash on hand that I can go buy the hot dogs needed and give them to someone if they want to redeem their hot dog token for an actual hot dog. And so that's what the concept of anchoring means. So the concept of an anchor, or the concept of a tethered asset, which I hate using that term because tether is like the most fractionalized reserve. I think they have less than 3% of actual cash on hand compared to the amount of tokens they have in circulation. But that concept of being anchored or tethered, that's the whole premise behind a stable coin. It's tethered or anchored to that currency. So if you buy USD coin, you expect it to always be tradable for one real USD. The same way if you buy hot dog token, you expect it to always be redeemable for one real hot dog. And so that's what the concept of tethered or anchored means. So in Stellar specifically, that concept is enforced by centralized entities. So when I go on the Stellar network and I want to buy, say, tokenized Bitcoin, there will be 5 different anchors who I can buy it from. And it's just whoever, you're going to choose either the one that has the best liquidity or the one that you trust the most to actually be solvent in a year, or there isn't.
I know on Chainlink, you actually do get rated as an oracle.
Stellar is an entirely decentralized system. So there are some people who just personally create their own ranking systems or whatever. And then like the most popular blockchain explorer has like a codified way that they create like a rating system. But there isn't anything official on the Stellar network.
So I know Chainlink, you actually have to stake link the coin link.
Yeah. So there are
other able to provide the service as an oracle, and then you get rated on how
there are other networks
your results are. So does this do anything?
Stellar doesn't have any sort of staking or proof of staking or anything like that to enforce people's honesty or capabilities, but some other networks absolutely do that. That's how a lot of proof of stake networks work is if you are a bad actor or you don't do your job, you lose all the tokens you have staked. So that's how it's sort of, there's the financial enforcement and incentivization to be honest. You had a question? They're insolvent, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, of their customers' assets. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a bit of a tangent, and I absolutely want to talk about this. This is more about high yield and lending and banking and custodial protocols, and we can absolutely talk about that. I just want to finish this thought real quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to get back to was, so when Tether or when Terra Luna talks about their USD coin or UST being anchored or pegged to the real US dollar, that wasn't based on a real entity actually having those assets in their custody. That's called UST is what's called an algorithmic stablecoin. So they try to create, they've got an algorithm or a robot that tries to buy other assets to make sure they always have enough funds on hand to buy the USD, or in, if we go back to the hot dogs example, let's say I mint 100 hot dog coins, and let's say it costs me $1 a hot dog to get those actual hot dogs and be able to trade them back. So as long as I have $100 on hand, I can never be insolvent. I can always honor all of the tokens that I have out in circulation. But the way that, so what a lot of people do with that capital is instead of keeping it in USD, they'll invest it into Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever else, and just hope that their stack of assets always has enough value that they can redeem it for the assets they actually have to cover. And that's
Terra Luna's problem was they actually used their own coin, Luna coin.
Yeah. So it was
as one of the backers.
It was pretty much a Ponzi.
Yeah, it was definitely.
They were using the value of their own token as the backing as that asset to cover the USD. What's the term? The USD obligations that they have. If they mint $1 million UST, then they need to have $1 million in assets that they could theoretically convert back to USD and then provide to people. And they were using their own token to represent that value. And so that's a total recipe for disaster. That's just a full-on Ponzi pyramid scheme that's going to collapse at some point, and it absolutely did. There's other algorithmic stablecoins that have much better algorithms that actually do keep enough assets on hand. The first one that comes to hand is DAI, D-A-I. If I was going to hold any algorithmic stablecoins or decentralized stablecoins, DAI would be my choice.
But I agree, and USD is the other. But I want to say Tether, even though you alluded to the potential that they only have 3% cash on hand, they actually do have U.S. Treasury notes.
I don't think it's U.S. I think it's mostly Chinese.
Well, I didn't know that.
I understand they have a lot of I think it's called commercial paper. It's IOUs,
governmental
but it's
issues,
primarily from China.
So you're still relying on the possibility of markets fluctuating in
if there was a bank run on Tether, if there was a bank run on Tether, the price would depeg for sure
at some point.
They just don't have enough actual USD to back it. You mean USD coin?
Yeah.
USD coin is run by the Center Consortium.
Coinbase has DAI and USD.
Yeah, so Coinbase is one of.
I don't think they do Tether or.
I think
Luna.
I think there was like 10 or so big American fintech companies that all got together to create the Center Consortium, and so that consortium is who runs USD coin. Circle, it's Circle, it's Coinbase, it's a lot of really big players in the fintech space. In my opinion, it's the most trustworthy centralized USD stablecoin it is still most likely got some level of fractional reserve. Their audits haven't been great as far as it actually being 100%.
And subject to the overall market conditions, which
Yeah.
could get worse or better
Mhm.
over time, depending on other activities.
But yeah, of the choices available, it's my favorite. And it not only because I trust that it's actually going to be able to pay out USD to my bank account, and I've actually done it, but because it has such good, it's backed by companies that are actually subject to like US law and stuff, like so many crypto companies aren't.
Right.
And you know, they're just really making a big push to be like the trustworthy source. And oh, not only that, but it has the highest interoperability of any stable coin. Most other stable coins are running on 1 or maybe 2 or 3 chains. USD coins running on like 8 or maybe even more. I think it might be 12 chains now. And most importantly to me, one of the chains is Stellar.
I have a question for you. Did you get any, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to in personal life, but did you get any communication about them their ability to return any of your funds or from
So
them?
far, Wave has released statements to customers about that they are fine chapter lending, that they are trying to solve.
But they probably froze everything, right?
Yeah.
Withdrawals.
Or stages of
Yeah.
transfer.
Yeah, well, because they don't have the funds.
Authenticate again.
Mm-hmm. FTX. I don't consider them to be trustworthy personally.
And
They're talking about them. So there's a lot of potential. I think that it's time to, I think we'll get a percent back.
Voyager needs some kind of big money to buy them out and back it up and prop it up again, really, basically. Celsius, Tether, and
So
Three Arrows Capital was another one.
they're insolvent. So yeah, let's transition and talk about this. So we're talking about what we're really talking about is DeFi lending protocols, but they present themselves as high yield savings accounts. And most of them are centralized. There are some of them that are decentralized. But basically any, and this is a bit of an oversimplification, most places that your funds with them, they're doing something with your money, obviously. That's how they turn your assets into more assets and give you a cut of the profits is the theoretical business model. And most of them are just simple lending platforms. So let's say, you know, Voyager or Celsius or whoever, and takes in $1 million worth of customer funds and they're promising, let's say 10% APY on it. That means they have to lend out that money to other people for a higher percentage in order to make at least that much profit to pay those obligations. And they presumably want to make some money themselves too. They might also be charging trade fees or whatever. They might have a different business model and maybe 100% of the lending profits goes to the lenders who are really the customers. But at that point, you should just be using peer-to-peer lending and then you don't have to worry about that. So that's how a lot of those places present is that here's your risk-free, quote unquote, high APY, but what they're really doing with your money is very risky. I mean, there's been so many stories lately of companies or protocols that were just taking their customers' funds and investing it in another company that was offering even more yield than them and just scraping the profits off the top and hoping that they were going to be able to cash out, and then the whole thing sort of collapsed down. And so, yeah, what ends up happening when, like you said, when a big, let's say this lending protocol has $1 billion worth of assets, but they've got one customer who has a $630 million loan who defaults, well, now they can't pay back over 50% of their original customers, the depositors, let's call them that. And so, yeah, those funds just don't exist. They lent them out and they didn't get them back. And that's sort of how it's got a parallel or a similarity to how what we were talking about, how the algorithmic based stable coins work, where they're trying to keep a balance sheet that matches their obligations of actual assets. And so, you know, like a Voyager or a Celsius on paper on their balance sheet, you know, they've got all these people that owe them more money than they've promised to pay in yield. But if any of those people don't pay them, well, the people who are holding the stick are the people who deposited money, because this doesn't have the same type of, you know, it just doesn't have FDIC insurance. This doesn't have backing with any of the traditional financial markets. Yeah, when everything's going up, yeah, well, oh yeah. I've read some articles saying there was a consortium of whales who sort of conspired together to short Terra Luna to the ground. Mm-hmm. Wall Street bets. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those types of things do happen. I think like what you're getting at here is that there's a lot of problems with paper trading. So when you look at Bitcoin specifically, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. There's a lot of estimates that over 4 million has already been lost forever. I think only like 18 or 19 million have been minted so far. But if you go on all the various centralized exchanges that exist, there's way more than 19 million Bitcoin being traded. Because it's not real. It's paper Bitcoin. It's on their own ledger book. So like if you go specifically on Binance and you're trading Bitcoin on Binance, you're not actually exchanging any Bitcoin. You're just trading numbers on the Binance's ledger that says I have now less Bitcoin and more whatever I traded it for. But those trades aren't actually happening on chain or anywhere. And so Binance doesn't actually have to settle up and have enough Bitcoin unless there's a bank run on Bitcoin. As long as everyone's keeping their Bitcoin on Binance and just trading with their Binance ledger, you know, Binance could have 0 Bitcoin and they just buy it as needed when people actually want to cash out. And so that actually happened really recently with Monero. So most chains, it's kind of obvious, you know, Binance's Bitcoin wallet is well known and it's public ledger. You can see exactly how much Bitcoin they have. And, you know, they can claim that they have other secret cold wallets or whatever, but you can see that they at least have this much, you know, this wallet we know is owned by them. But that's a problem for Monero. Monero, if people don't know, it's a privacy focused coin. And so you can't see what people's balances are. It's not super public and all on a public and transparent like most blockchains are. And so there was a lot of rumors that ended up being confirmed that a lot of these centralized exchanges didn't have anywhere close to enough Monero to cover their obligations. And so the internet actually organized sort of a bank run on Monero and centralized exchanges, and most of them halted withdrawals because they don't actually have it. They're just saying, you guys can trade Monero all day. It's just on our ledger, and we don't actually have that Monero. And so that causes havoc on pricing for coins that are reliant on, you know, basically matching, especially for like stable coins or whatever, or like we talked about, let's say I released 100 hot dog coin and I only have 100 hot dogs, but a couple of centralized exchanges have picked it up and they're paper trading it. And now people are trading over 1,000 hot dog coin, but it's all sort of a virtual, and somebody shorts it. A whale shorts their 500 hot dog coin that they already own on Binance, and they can short it through the floor because there should be a theoretical floor price if hot dogs are worth $1 and these are actually redeemable for $1, the price should never go below that floor price that they know it's redeemable for. But you can play some really crazy financial games with leverage and short selling and like doing it against like an illiquid market. If you weren't selling it against USD, but you were selling it against, let's say, Bitcoin, you can short it down past the point where it's worth less than what it's redeemable for against Bitcoin. And then either the same person or someone else can come in and start running arbitrage to try to get it to level back out. And it's all just games. And yeah, it's all reliant on these fake hot dog coins that don't really exist.
I know we're probably running out of time. I just want to make one other comment and go back to my original question. I'm interested in learning more about the anchor activity under Stellar and how we might be able to participate some way.
Absolutely.
Just to be able to learn about it. And see
It's really easy. We can do it on testnet or on mainnet.
Do our own. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
The anchor functionality is very powerful.
Yeah, I love this idea.
Yeah.
So we're at about the end of our hour, and we're going to go on basically just a holding pause on the Zoom and the YouTube live feed, and then we'll open it back up in about an hour at 1 p.m. Arizona time. But I just wanted to conclude with a couple comments here. First of all, thanks for tuning in and watching this. But there are some events coming up that I would like to highlight. And one of them actually, I think, touches upon the topic that we just addressed. And so I'm going to do a little screen share here and talk about these. But some of us will be participating in this event, which is called DWeb Camp on August 24th through the 28th. In kind of the Mendocino, California area. It's about 2.5 hours, 3 hours north of San Francisco. And if you peruse through here, you will see a really awesome group of people that represent what I consider to be some of the, well, a lot of the leaders in Web3 and decentralized web. So I won't go into the different folks that are here, and it's still early. We're going to see more people that will be signing up, so keep an eye on this. But we do have, for instance, we have Jay Graber right here, who is the CEO of Blue Sky. And if you're not familiar with Blue Sky, it is an open source initiative that's sort of tied to Twitter, and it's backed by Jack Dorsey, who's one of the founders, was one of the founders of Twitter. He also founded Square, which is now Block. But it's people like this that are participating in this event. So stay tuned for that. Also, just immediately after DWeb Camp, starting on the 29th of August, some of us will be attending the Science of Blockchain conference at Stanford University, and they've added some sort of like additional conferences. I'll call them like satellite conferences that are happening, not necessarily in conjunction, but sort of in parallel to the Science of Blockchain conference. But most of all, this MEV workshop, which, if you're not familiar with MEV, it's about some of the games theory that are associated with blockchain and the way that people can kind of game various elements of settling trades and so forth. But I'm not sure this is going to load up in time. But the MEV, I think, is one of those areas that you should definitely keep an eye on. And this particular portion, flash bots and things like that. But anyway, I think this is really interesting, market dynamics and ways to bolster the decentralized space to minimize this game theory incentive set to sort of game the system. So I wanted to emphasize that. I'm going to stop the screen share. And basically that's it for our formal session. Again, we're going to go on just a placeholder screen for about an hour and then open it up if anybody has any questions at 1 o'clock, and we'll conclude our open house for the day. We'll also have a second Saturday in August for our next open house, and then on the fourth Wednesday of the month, we have our evening session, which will be announced soon for July. And then in all likelihood, we'll have our monthly session probably from DWeb camp in August, because I think our fourth Wednesday falls on the first day of DWeb camp. So that's what's coming up. If you have any questions, any comments, please contact me, Jay Carpenter, at desertblockchain.com. So thanks for your time and attention. And we're going to go turn the cameras off and so forth. Stop the recording on this. We'll keep the live stream going. So join us again in about an hour. If you have any questions, I'd like to open it up for comments. Okay, it's 1 o'clock Arizona time, and this is the time when we open it up for any kind of general conversation. We just had a lunch here at Desert Blockchain Camp and had some great conversation about various topics in DWeb, Web3, so forth. But now we open it up for any topics that folks might want to put into the chat on YouTube live stream, or if you're Desert Blockchain citizen, you could join in and we can chat a little bit. So we're going to leave this open for about 5 minutes, and if somebody pops in, great. If not, then we'll shut it down, and appreciate you tuning in.
Actually run a business on this stuff.
Probably should get it going just because she's. Yeah, but I'll tell you, how do you want me to reach you guys about Jason if you're interested in just learning more about the.
I think it probably best if he just attends one of our Saturday sessions.
Okay,
And then he can talk more than just.
sure.
And, you know, he could come next month at the open house. We could feature him that time. Or if he wants to, stop by in the interim. I won't be here next Saturday. She will be here, but, just let me know. Probably one of these sessions.
Okay, yeah, we actually are going on a couple trips, so we won't be around for a couple weeks. We'll be back till like the middle of August. So we'll try to get, what? Yeah.
We're going to hot shoot place.
We're going to Pennsylvania, so that was so smart, but yeah, well, I'll try to see, when is the open house next one?
It'll be on the second Saturday of August.
Isn't that when you guys have your campus trip?
No, I think. I won't be.
For the camping trip? We'll see if you can come to that open house, like,
Yeah.
we all should be back. I know he obviously likes to work with him, so he's love to come in. I think he enjoys sport. I've been interested in that. So I've been very interested in it. Cool. I hope so. I mean, it's a whole risk, right? Investment going to risk. I've invested in these and. Well, we said invest in like a restaurant as well. Like $100,000 in a restaurant that's paying. And I live a lot of this. First one from this information, like, that, right? Yes. Yeah, so I think this gain I got it and I definitely applied for investment. So it's pretty important like that. Yeah.
Dumbest choice.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're like, everything else stopped. Way more. Kitchen is like a different shape than it used to be. Just got our chairs. Very happy. We're both, we like the both, for sure.
Nice chat. Okay, should be around next month, hopefully. Nice. Yeah, I mean, we want to buy our phone.
Like an industrial water, like look at that. Our style is that is actually a pair with speaker and there is LED glow. So
Good to see you.
you got all the big stuff.
She just, she's very funny. Everyone's trying to. I told her. She's gonna start class. Hi, guys.
All right, we're gonna turn off the Zoom and the YouTube live stream. Thanks for your time and attention. And again, let me know if you have any questions, jcarpenter@desertblockchain.com.